So who can tell me what's the best time to pray Janazah prayer? Is it after Fajr or after Dhuhr? After Maghrib? What's the best time? The time is the earliest possible time. So if somebody dies, you shouldn't wait like until the Isha of the next day, because for any reason. As we said, for all the process, the funeral process, whether it be washing, shrouding, and burial, and even janazah prayer, you have to hurry up as much as possible. You should not delay. So the best thing is to do at the earliest times. And then we also mentioned how should we pray, how the head should get aligned for male, and for the females, sisters, you should be in the middle, and so on. And if there are multiple bodies, first should be man close to the imam, and then boy, girl, and then the woman. That should be the order, and the alignment as well should be kept. Men should always be aligned with the head of the imam, and so on. And some of the issues also we covered, how many rows we should have, the 3 is the minimum, and so on. We'll also cover, this is what we're going to cover today, don'ts of janazah prayer. A few things that we should remember while praying janazah prayer. So, first thing, we have seen this very common mistake among people, not only in janazah prayer, but even in regular prayers. Sometimes what people do is, if the imam says Allahu Akbar, everybody repeats Allahu Akbar. And if the imam says Salaam Alaikum, everybody repeats Salaam Alaikum. So, as a follower, we are supposed to follow the imam, but we should not raise our voice. We should keep it silent. Only imam can speak, even at the end. Unless, exception of course, that if there are extended rows, and if for example, the voice cannot reach the people in the back, so people can raise their voice so that one behind them can listen to that. So that's an exception that is okay. But otherwise, people should keep quiet. And this is very important, very common mistake. So what people do is that, okay, they'll say, we will pray janazah prayer, maybe like, okay, after Dhuhr prayer. So what they do, they bring the bier or the coffin in front of the imam, and they pray Dhuhr, and then they pray janazah prayer. That's wrong. That should not be done. The bier, the coffin should not be in front of imam if they are praying the obligatory prayers. Only for the janazah prayer, at that time when it starts, then the bier should be brought. Fourth prayer should not be in front of the imam, the bier. Why is it so? Why can't we put the bier in front of the imam for the fourth prayers? Because you see, in regular prayers, we do what? We do sajda, we do ruku, and if the dead body is in front of us, it's not good. It appears as if the prayer is we are praying to the dead body. If somebody, a non-Muslim or a very new Muslim sees this, he might get a bad impression. He might get a different impression. He might say like, these guys are not praying to Allah. These guys are praying to this dead body. So we should. That is the reason when we pray janazah prayer, if you notice, we will go over those steps. There is no ruku, there is no sajda in the whole prayer. So that's the reason. This should always be remembered. Bier should be kept somewhere in the end or somewhere in the back, but never should it be brought in front of the imam. And if you are in such a position that you are going to be in front of the bier, try to move away from it, even though you're following the imam. And also the sequence is very important all through the janazah prayer that we discussed, the washing, the shrouding, and then the janazah prayer. This cannot be switched. Cannot be like, hey, the person who's going to wash and shroud, he is like 1 hour late, so why don't we pray janazah prayer now and then we'll move on later. That's not correct. You have to follow the sequence. And the other thing is that when we say janazah prayer, right, it's all about dua. The main point, the main focus of the janazah prayer is the dua. We are waiting for that moment. So we should prepare ourselves for that moment to make dua. But many people have another set of dua after janazah prayer, sometimes immediately after prayers. There is a dua when we go to grave, we will cover that, but dua should be specific to janazah prayer. If you want to make dua, try to include it in the prayer, but not after that. So because dua is good, sounds good, but if you are moving the dua out of the prayer, you're losing all the benefits. The disease might not get that much benefit, because even the disease is waiting for that moment. People to make dua for that. And we discussed last time that the best thing that you can do for the deceased after he dies is the janazah prayer. There are other things as well, giving charity or so on. Some scholars they made a list of things that are allowed. Some of the things that you cannot do. Some of the things won't benefit. But this is one of the things that benefits the most. So janazah prayer, dua should be the focus. And before we start the janazah prayer, again a quick recap, a few things we should remember. If suppose you are given the opportunity, if the imam is not there, so you are leading the janazah prayer now, so you should be aware of few things. Again, make sure that's the right time. There are few times we are not allowed to pray janazah prayer. We mentioned in that table during sunset and so on. So make sure that's the right time. And if it's not the right time, wait for a few minutes until that prohibited time is gone. And also purity, meaning you got to have wudu for the janazah prayer as well. There is no explicit hadith. That's why some scholars say even if you don't have wudu and the jama is going on, like for example, if you pray first prayer, if you broke wudu, and if you go to make wudu, you might miss the prayer. Some scholars say that you can just pray with it. Either way, it's not further ayn on you. But the best thing is that you should have wudu. You should have wudu, because that was the statement of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar, who used to say one should not offer a funeral prayer unless he is in a state of purity. So wudu should be there. And the position of the beer we showed in those diagrams, that should be remembered. That's sunnah. I mean, if somebody didn't know and they just prayed whatever direction they kept, the further kifaya will be met, but the sunnah you have to follow it. They are missing out on sunnah. That's what's not the wrong way should not be done. And arranging the rows again, you have to remember 3 rows should be formed at least, minimum. I was not able to find any evidence. Some people say odd numbered rows, but I couldn't find any hadith about that, why people do odd numbers. Probably because odd is preferred to Allah. He likes odd, so that's why people do it. But I didn't see anything in the sunnah. And for example, this one, the announcements. Can we make announcements? Usually people, what they do is they announce the gender before they start the prayer, and this was this person and so on. The scholar said it is okay. You can announce the gender is a male or female. Why? Because it helps, especially if you're making dua, you can specifically make for the gender, like he or she, things like that. So gender is okay. And some people also, it's actually a good time, because many people don't know the rulings, how to pray. So it's a good time that Imam announces to people or teaches people at that very spot, very moment how to pray. That is okay. There's no problem with that.